Oh na 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 na. Bam bam. Oh na 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 na. Bam bam. Oh na 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 na. Bam bam. Oh na 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 na. Big it up. Oh na 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 na. Big it up. Oh na 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 na. Bam bam. Bir bam bam bir bam bir de. Bir bam bam. Bir bam bir de. Bir bam bam bir bam bam bir bam bir de. Bir bam bam.
Greetings. My name is Paulette Price, and I'm a real estate broker.
Hi everyone, I'm Robert Taylor, attorney at law, and I'm happy to join Paulette today on Home and Away Jamaica, and we will be discussing very casually and informally, but with a very informative approach, issues in the real estate market in Jamaica. And Paulette, I'll just go straight away. You're a real estate broker, your boots are on the ground. We've been coming out of COVID, and there's a lot of anxiety, economic anxiety, concerns about slowdown in the economy. What are you seeing in the real estate market across Jamaica? What are some of the trends? Has the demand fallen?
Well, what I'd like to do is just kind of mention what was going on before COVID. The market was just so exciting, full of activities. And I think that's all attached to the number of tourists that we had come in last year, something like 4.3 million or something like that. COVID definitely had a great impact, but not on the entire market is what I noticed. It really shut down Airbnb, first and foremost, which then meant that a lot of the property owners had to put their properties back into long-term rental. This also helped the long-term renters to get, I think, a better deal now. Because there's a group that we have where a lot of us real estate agents, we all work together, we share stuff, most of us do. And the group that I'm in was very, very active. Long-term rentals, like for example, I have a rental, 2 bedrooms. It was 100,000. Now it's 90,000. A couple of weeks later, you see it's come down again to 70,000. That's kind of unheard of. So I think it's shaken up the market instantly. We knew that something would have to give where Airbnb is concerned, but it's all that, yeah, as you know, it's to do with supply and demand. So the more we have in the long-term rental market, prices will then start to settle. However, people are still wanting to buy. I have still been very busy during COVID. So the only thing could not do was to go out and do viewings. I would do viewings for empty properties, but not for properties where people lived in them, you know, like the tenant is there or the owner is there, because we obviously wanted to maintain the safe distancing and obviously to keep ourselves safe and everybody else safe. So as I've got boots on the ground, I can see where we've had to adjust, we've had to shift on how we're working. So, you know, reminding people we're still here to do business, but it hasn't shut it down. And I think now that we're beginning to open up again, we're just going to have to work differently. I don't know what you think with in terms of law. Have you had the same thing?
Well, you know, you mentioned something which has been a concern of ours for some time. There was a lot of demand and build-up prior to COVID, but we also saw a lot of inventory coming into the market from your multi-family dwellings. So primarily because not just demand, Airbnb demand, but the planners have also loosened the density requirements. So in the past, where you would find that, you know, an acre of land could only support or approval could only be given for 10 townhouse units. Yes. What we're finding with added public sewage and the added infrastructure, or planners have been giving 75, 125 rooms to the acre. So because of this allowance of increased density, more inventory has come into the market in a much shorter time. So there was always that concern that in the apartment, single, multi-dwelling unit, that we were at some point going to have supply exceed demand. And so I think what you just described is what we saw during COVID, where a lot of the demand that was coming from Airbnb had been shut down. And that opened up the opportunity for long-term renters who were being shut out of the market or who had to pay much higher prices because they were competing with your short-term Airbnb occupant who provides investors with a greater return. So we've seen that to some extent, but we've also seen builders continue to build because they recognize that the building cycle is 12 to 18 months. And certainly we expect that we will get through this. And so their units will be ready, certainly, and the optimism is at a time when we're approaching recovery and hopefully full recovery. So similarly, there continues to be interest. The commercial market remains fairly robust. We've not seen with the transactions we've been doing a fall off in values in commercial properties, and the demand seems fairly strong. And so there was this anticipation before that we were going to have this wholesale recession, repossessions, foreclosures, but we've not seen it because the banks have also been working with their mortgagors. The BOJ, the Bank of Jamaica, I understand, has given the commercial banks and mortgage companies some guidance on how to deal with, slow paying and non-paying loans. So there's more of an organized effort in making sure that the market just doesn't fragment in the way it has in other down cycles.
I believe as well that we have surprised everybody. We're still going, we're ready. We're just doing it differently. Because I explained it to people that in a way, it's a bit like if you stop a really large vehicle that has to keep moving, if you stop it completely to get it going again, it's going to be really hard. I'm just waiting to go. So my clients are ready to go, which is really good. And I'm really excited about the future.
That's certainly good news, and we share your optimism as well in our practice. Now, where are you advising your clients to look for opportunities? Are you seeing, we just discussed the short-term versus long-term, and understanding that rental rates have gone down for longer-term rentals. For your buyers, where are you seeing the opportunities and where are you directing your clients?
Well, I actually know what my clients want. They actually want studios, one-bedrooms, townhouses, and affordable homes. So I'm trying to reach out to developers and have conversations with them. And I think they're beginning to listen. We're currently working on a project right now where there's 350 affordable homes to be built. And we haven't even really marketed it that well yet, but we are getting quite a lot of calls. So that just shows you what people want. So I have been having conversation with developers to try to say to them, you've now got to give people what they want and not what you think they want. People are now very much into watching these property programs on cable TV. So they love the idea of subway tiles, fitted kitchens with islands, nice quality faucets, easy to get to and from home. Because sometimes I ask them questions like, do you drive? Because then if they drive, I can introduce them to this development that's a little bit further away, but it's only 2 minutes off the highway. So it's things like that people are really picking up on. And it's nice to be able to give people what they want. I think it's time. And when we started talking about even the Airbnb market, for example, Airbnb is great. But what happened, I think it left quite a lot of people behind. So lots of people were using their rental properties for Airbnb, which then meant the rental market became really expensive. So it's all about that supply and demand. And if you did find a good apartment, it was really expensive. So now that COVID has shifted in a big way, where it was shut down in a day, those people who have 5 or 6 or 7 Airbnb properties now has to put them back into long-term rental. So it now balances everything out. So people can now, I think, get better quality rental.
In some markets in Europe in particular, Airbnb has a similar impact of crowding out the longer term rentals. And what some governments and planners have had to do is intervene and block certain communities from being able to offer an Airbnb rental. What would you advise your clients? What are the price points that your clients are looking for? So you mentioned affordable housing.
Yes.
Where is the price point in the market? Is it 15 million? Where's the price point for your studios, your 1-bedroom?
Yes.
Where are the price points for townhouses, for example?
Well, what I found is that most of the pre-approvals that come through are between 9 and 15. So, for example, I advertised a house, a fixer-upper, a 9.5. I was inundated with calls for that 9.5. So that's already telling you that 9, 10, 11 is really where people are at. For apartments, I believe because people are in the 9 to 15 bracket, that's the reason why we need more studios and 1-bedrooms. I'm trying to work out the average price of a studio on the North Coast. I can't find many studios. So it's been very difficult to even assist a developer up that side that wants to put studios on the market. So I think that a fair price for a studio, as long as it's got all the stuff that people really want, should come for about 12 million, 12, 13. And not a little shoebox either, because what we're finding is in Kingston, because we have very little space, the developers are trying to cram more units into a smaller space, and then the prices are high. So it makes it unaffordable. So we have to really spread the way where we build these places.
So, Paulette, what we find, and it aligns fairly much with what you're saying in the number of matters that come into our firm, there's very little inventory on the North Coast for persons who are buying in a non-resort setting. And so, whether it's in Montego Bay, there was the Tara investment scheme in Reading, that has been built up, but there's very little product there. We know further going towards Ocho Rios, we have Richmond, which is also very popular with returning residents, but very little inventory, and quite the opposite in Kingston, where we're seeing that oversupply in the market. Now, are you finding that your clients are relying on financing? You mentioned affordable housing. There is a National Housing Trust benefit that persons can use. How are persons buying? Is it cash, partial cash?
Mainly mortgages, and a lot of NHT. And the NHT are doing some wonderful things for people. I believe that NHT should actually market themselves a lot more than they do. You find out things by accident or from somebody else's experience, but they're actually a great organization. We should actually interview them. They do so much for people, really and truly.
Yes,
because, and what lots of the banks are doing are they're doing the where they join up, where, say for example, you can afford to spend 12 million and you get the maximum of the 6.5 from NHT. The mortgage companies will give you the balance. But what I like about that exercise is that it saves the client having to go to NHT first, then go to the bank. The banks now will do the NHT application and then do their part of the mortgage application. So basically, it makes it a lot easier and smoother for the purchaser. And more and more banks are getting involved in that joined up scheme.
Well, that's good. And certainly, when we here in Jamaica look at what's happening in other markets, certainly in the US and the UK, we mentioned earlier the management of COVID has, to a very large extent, allowed us to retain at least some aspects of our economic activity. Where do you see the market going in 6 to 12 months?
I think more developers will wake up to the affordable homes and the studios. There is a new development going up in Mandeville, for example, and you don't tend to see a lot of apartments in Mandeville, because normally the returning residents go there and they build these huge houses. And I think 2/3 of that development, I think it's about 78 units, are made up of studios and 1-bedrooms, and the rest is 2-bedrooms. So we can see that that's happening, and they're spreading their wings. So that's where I see the market going. They're definitely waking up. They're definitely waking up to building studios and 1-bedrooms. What people need is what I've been saying earlier.
Good. I think, Paul, that we've shared some very good and informative information. We've been able to give those listening a fairly good summary on where the market is. So persons who may have had some anxiety and some concern as to whether now is the time to invest. But, certainly what I would say is that this is the time to invest. This will pass. And as the economy recovers and demand goes up, prices will go up. So if there is any softening in the market, now is the time to take the opportunity. Certainly, what we have done at Taylor Law is we've adopted our practice. So in our office, we have a rotation of staff. Much of our transactions we do online. And so we're finding that we've been adapting, and there's very real little need to have that physical contact. So it shows that with this new paradigm, we can continue to do business, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to find opportunities and transact as we normally would.
Yeah, I also think that we've always thought we have to have face-to-face, but we can do both. And when there's a crisis, we can still make that happen. What's happened for me over COVID is that, yes, transactions are going through, but yes, they were taking a little bit longer. We just needed to learn how to adjust. But I think we're bouncing back quite well. And we will do a lot. We will do well. We will be doing very well. Because people are just dying to come home. I've got clients I've been talking to from before COVID, and they're like, I've got emails saying, yeah, Paulette, we're coming at the end of the month. Be ready for us. So I think people have understood that this is not like a regular recession where we don't know where it's going to come out. We don't know if it's going to be a year or 2 years or 5 years. But I think most people are saying to themselves, give it until about December. We know that after that we'll be fine. But they're still doing their work in the background, which is quite comforting.
I think that's a good dose of optimism for us to end on, Paul. Yes. Enjoy the conversation. I look forward to us having more information shared and a discussion next week.
Next program, we'll see you there. We have lots to talk about.
Take care. Thanks for joining us on Home and Away Jamaica.
Take care till the next time.
Oh la 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 la, bamba. Oh la 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 la.